is your USP? Because obviously we can sit here and we can talk about people have heard enough about the Keller Williams model or, you know, other self-employment models, etc. You've obviously tried and tested it over a period of time and now built a system behind it to enable people to replicate exactly what you've done. And let's face it, you are the most successful real estate agent in not just in Keller Williams, probably
one of them.
Yeah, no, you are. But you're on track now to replicate what they've done in the States, because that was something that people wasn't sure that it was credible here yet in the UK, and I think that might have even been part of the reason why you decided to become an agent, right? Because we can talk about what people have done in the States all day long, but did we have anybody here in the UK where we could go, he's done it?
Well, that was the burning question, that when you talk to people about the way that we work or the opportunities that the self-employed estate agency model offers to people, everyone wants to learn more, because on paper, obviously, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
The one question I was asked on a consistent basis was, can you show me somebody that's doing it and is successful at doing it?
Yeah.
And at the time where I was operating, I couldn't.
Yeah.
And so it was that whole, they want to see social proof, understandably, before they, you know,
of course,
pack in their full-time job and the salary and the safety net and all that sort of thing. And because I was operating down in London, I always knew that I wanted to do something in Milton Keynes. And I had that realisation of, even if I do have somebody in London that's doing it really well, is someone in Milton Keynes going to look at that and go, it's not going to translate to them?
Yeah.
So, so excuse me, I know that I needed somebody in Milton Keynes doing it well.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, I'll just be that person.
Yeah.
So I had to go and do it in order to grow it larger.
Yeah, yeah. And now, obviously, the USP to people coming in and joining your team is that, well, I've done it, I've proven it, I'm well on track to being a millionaire real estate agent, which is obviously what this model is. Come in, follow the process, let me advise you on exactly how to do it, and there's no reason at all why you won't be in exactly the same boat as me a few years down the line. But your USP specifically, let's talk about what that is. You know, that you've spent a lot of time making sure that it's very much an agent-centric business. Everything that you do is about customer service and what's right by the customer. So just talk me through that a little bit.
So I think the reason why self-employed agency is definitely in its ascendancy is if you actually look at the structure of it, it's very much a case of you have like a personal estate agent, someone's at the personal shopping of estate agency.
Yeah.
Now, the irony behind this is that it's no different to just anybody setting up their own business. When you look at the majority of independent agents across the country, they would have probably started out as the owner that started off on their own, and then they grew from there.
Yeah.
The difference for me is that I wanted to make sure we wanted to replicate the success that we had, rather than changing the recipe. So what you'll see a lot of people do is when it's them, they're doing everything. They get, you know, they people love them. They get referrals, and then typically what they'll decide is, I now need to bring someone into business to help me out.
Yeah.
And if you look at traditional agency structure, I'm going to hire a negotiator. So I'll go and take all the houses on, and I'm going to hire you, Clay. You can come and deal with all the buys. You can go and do all the viewings. Well, all of a sudden, just in that format, now there's two people that customer has to deal with.
Yeah.
And it's what I always found in traditional agency was that I'm going to call it a chasm, not even a gap, between the lister and the negotiators. I would always remember when I first started, we had what were called punch sheets or sale tens, which was new house came on, and the lister, whoever took it on the market, would piece of paper, they'd write the address, they'd write 6 bullet points in terms of USPs, and we had a list of 10 names, numbers, and viewing times. We had to call at least 10 people to try and book them in for a viewing.
Yeah.
If you think about what those bullet points were, semi-detached, garage, ensuite, garden. None of it was about the owner. None of it was about the lifestyle, about the area. It was very much just bricks and mortar. And so as a consumer, when you've got that agent coming out to you, you typically go with a lister that you resonate with, that you believe understands your reason for moving, because all of our reasons for moving are different.
Yeah.
And you trust that person. But then the next conversation you then have is with a negotiator saying, can I come around and do a viewing at 6 o'clock this evening, Claire? You're like, but I told Dom that I work nights, so I can't do times like that.
Yeah.
We've got a buyer that needs to move in the next 2 months. But I told you that I'm looking to move in August or whatever it may be. It's almost like there's that gap where it's not the people's fault. It's just ultimately you're going to have a dip in service when you pass from one person to another, even if you have one negotiator looking after individual properties. If you don't have the same person dealing with that client from first meeting through to the sale being agreed, there's going to be an issue. So I didn't want to go down that route because that's not what made us successful in the first place. It was dealing with one person. So our team structure is exactly that. It's just miniature versions of me, basically, where we're saying, look, I'm not going to go and take all the houses on, and you're not going to do all the viewings. You're going to do the viewings for your own houses. So the customer gets exactly what I have, what they got from me. It's best for the agent because it means that they get to deal with that client, they get to know them, they really build that relationship with them. But bottom line, earlier you said that we built the team around, it's an agent-centric business. It's a client-centric business. You know, that was the idea. As we started with, if you had a magic wand as a homeowner, as a house seller, if you could design the perfect estate agency service, what would that look like?
Yeah.
And just make it.
Yeah.
What's stopping you from just designing it? And ironically, you know, it's what one of my biggest bugbears is when you have, like back in my old world, we would talk about our register or our stock. It's not stock. It's not a supermarket where we own a load of stock that we're putting on the shelves and we're selling. These are other people's homes. These are other people's assets that they are entrusting us to look after for on their behalf. We don't buy the house. We don't sell the house. We connect a buyer and a seller together. And so we have to do what's right by that customer, because if we're not, then the whole reason for our existence is kind of null and void, surely. So the idea was design the perfect service and start with what they want and just work backwards and try and put it into place. And if you do that, when you go out to meet somebody, funnily enough, they go, oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I want. Can I go with you? Which is why our conversion is so high from valuation through to instruction. Now we're at the stage where it's a case of, right, how do we get more people knowing about how we work? Because if more people know how we do it, then surely we'll get more valuations and then convert them. So that's kind of stage 2 of our growth now, is getting more people aware of the way that we operate. Because like I said, when we tell people how we work, they just think, thank God.
Well, why wouldn't they? Yeah. I mean, and funnily enough, the number one complaint of the Ombudsman is obviously lack of communication and record keeping. So exactly as you said there, record keeping is because they're speaking to 3 or 4 people and nobody knows what their story is and their reason behind
it's frustrating.
The move. It is frustrating.
But it's not the staff members' fault. They're being made to operate in that way because it's how you maximise your profit for that business. It's how do you do more transactions. But there's 2 ways of obviously maximising profit, and doesn't necessarily mean increasing income. It means you can just reduce costs. You know, you've kind of got two ends to it. So we don't want to go down the high volume. Tell a lie. I would happily go down high volume, but only if I've got the right number of agents that can maintain the same standard of service to every person. I don't want to sacrifice what we do for our customer in exchange for high profit, because it's a marathon, not a sprint. And this is a long-term thing for us. And I want to make sure that what we're doing here is building something so powerful that agents go, I want to work that way. Because I would love to work that way. I want to work that way. I'm just being pigeonholed with my role. And I want the customer to go, that's the obvious choice. And if we do that, if we get the best agents, they'll be able to provide the best service. And it will just be a spiral from there. So that's what I'm passionate about. That's where my